Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman here again. And in this video, I want to look at the chart of famous rocker Ozzy Osbourne. He was the original well, him and his band were the original metal band. Um, Legendary. At their start in 1969. I'm going to show my screen. So Ozzy Osbourne got his start with Black Sabbath, later had a very powerful solo career, had a reality TV show, was behind Ozfest in, I think, the 90s, big metal festival. Anyway, very big, powerful character with a big, powerful voice. He's a Sagittarius sun. Conjunct Mercury and Chiron owns Sagittarius. And it's in the first quadrant, but second whole sign house. So obviously we're going to look at second house for voice, and probably third house as well for, this would be second quadrant, third whole sign, for voice control, skills of the voice, second and third being connected. We see that second Lord in the second quadrant, third whole sign. But so Sagittarius definitely is very philosophical, religious minded, big-minded, Jupiterian. Sagittarius loves to celebrate. That's one of the things about Sagittarius. And the way to understand that is that if you look at Libra, Libra's all about peace and equality, equanimity, just getting along, relationships, balance. It's the scales. It's very balanced and loves to see both sides of everything. Loves to be peaceful, calm, quiet. After the, the saying, the calm before the storm. Well, Libra is the calm before the storm, and Scorpio is the storm. And Scorpio represents war, internal war. Like the two Mars signs are Aries and Scorpio. Mars is the initiation, the starting of all kinds of things, not just wars, but like fights or projects or inspiration. It's very initiatory. It's really get up and go. Let's do this. Let's create something new. Let's start things. Scorpio is more about the ongoing battle because it's a fixed sign, right? Aries is cardinal, so it's about starting things. It's about setting that fire, lighting things on fire. Scorpio is the internal, because it's a water sign, but you still have that Mars aggressive energy. So it's like an internal war that's ongoing. It's a continuous battle. And this is represented also with Pluto. We can see it with Mars and Pluto. And I think you get a much better picture when you combine the traditional rulers with the outer planets. Because Pluto brings in the more watery element, the psychological aspects, the struggle between the higher and lower energies here. The lower desires of the ego and the higher evolution of the soul, if you will. So there's that battle in Scorpio, the war, the ongoing war. Sagittarius, from that flow, is about the victory over the war that we have in Scorpio. And so Sagittarius is it's so celebratory. It's so celebration oriented. If we have like sort of like the occult and hidden secrets and like deep dark things in Scorpio, in Sagittarius we find God. We find philosophy. We find, for some it's religion, for others it's a God-based spirituality, or it can be, like I said, philosophy, or like higher education, very high-mindedness. But one of the things that it is very celebratory. So in Sagittarius, we want to celebrate. We want to travel. We want to go on adventures. We want to celebrate. Ozzy Osbourne has been celebrating his whole entire life. All that to say that Ozzy Osbourne is one long, drawn out celebration, and you can see what I'm talking about in the Osbournes, the reality TV show, how it is. So yeah, and that's not to say that Scorpio is not going to have Scorpio. So in Sagittarius, there's a lot of drinking, there's a lot of drugs, potentially, right? Depends on the whole person, of course, because they're celebrating. It's the Jupiterian expansiveness and excessiveness. If there's a downside to Jupiter, it's being excessive. In Scorpio, they're drinking and doing drugs because they're trying to cope with the war, that internal war. And, I'm also a Scorpio ascendant, 2 or 3 degrees. So similar with me, but I don't drink or do drugs anymore. And I was never like Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne was just like way beyond. But it's a combination of Scorpio and Sagittarius. Right. And then, so he's got the Sagittarius sun conjunct Mercury. Mercury is square Saturn, which is conjunct the MC. So we'll look at that. But the square is interesting because it's square to his Mercury. So he has there's a lot of conflicts in his life. Mercury is intellect, and he was dyslexic as a child. He had a difficult childhood. He turned to dark things like crime and whatnot. He was miserable. He tried to commit suicide numerous times. It's Scorpio, but the dyslexic quality and the not getting along with authority. Saturn is very high in the chart, which I'm going to cover more. I'm just trying to explain this square. So when he's young, especially, this is authority. This is, teachers, parents, grandparents, bosses, anyone who's older and mature and authoritarian. He's gonna butt heads with, because Mercury is it's disposited by Mercury, so I mean that's a good thing, but it is square. And Mercury is also ruling the 8th house. But just in general, Mercury rules the intellect, the mind, communication, friends. So he's going to be argumentative and somewhat rebellious and at odds with authority. Okay, and that is a theme that plays out through his life. Just getting into arguments with people, getting into disagreements. There's other factors there. Mars is ruling the 6th house, but that's part of it. And also because Mercury is conjunct Chiron here, so again, that can indicate some learning disabilities, some troubles with difficulty communicating, feeling like an outcast, feeling rejected, isolated, alone, because Chiron is the wounded reject. So this can make Mercury can be it's a very personal planet, because it's the intellect and the mind, and it has a similar sensitivity as the moon. You can often see mental illness from Mercury, not only the moon and Mercury as well. So with Mercury square Saturn and conjunct Chiron and combust the sun, I mean, Mercury has a pretty good ability to withstand the sun's intensity, but still, especially when young, I know because I have Venus combust the sun, and Venus is more sensitive, but still, Mercury, any planet that's combust the sun, especially when they're young, it's going to have difficulty because of that combustion. It's going to play out mostly in their youth until they get used to it. Then it fades away. But that planet needs to burn up. So his Mercury here is problematic, and that's why he did try and commit suicide when he was a kid. I mean, also the Scorpio Venus, Scorpio ascendant. But yeah, and this Mercury, and why he also did turn to crime. And then when he discovered music, he quickly realized he wanted to be a musician or a rock star or a singer for the rest of his life. Right. So then his moon, we get these three planets, strong planets in Capricorn. And what's interesting is that you have the typical moon, Jupiter, which get along great. They're a little far. I mean, Mars is in between them. But you'll see this in good dignity in a lot of famous people's charts. It's a really great combination. Not so great in Capricorn because Moon is in detriment in Capricorn. Jupiter is in debility in Capricorn, or fall, they call it. But Mars is exalted. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. And Mars Moon is not a good combination. That can show aggression towards women, but Mars being exalted here in Capricorn is well behaved, and Jupiter is right next to it. So Jupiter's still Jupiter, whether it's in, Capricorn or Gemini or Virgo, wherever, even if it's not in good dignity, it still has a Jupiterian quality to it. It's still going to protect and be benevolent and good. So I think, and I haven't heard, there were a lot of issues with Ozzy Osbourne over the years, but nothing in regards to, although he did at one time in a drunken stupor attack his wife. She later forgave him, but it's not a common thing. It was just sort of like too many drugs and alcohol, and then he does, he acts crazy and does all sorts of stuff, which he later doesn't remember. And then he has gone through periods of sobriety and rehab. So Jupiter's ruling the second whole sign house and the second house cusp, and it's in the second quadrant, but third whole sign house. So we're getting elements of second and third voice. Jupiter is not in good dignity. So you think, well, what, like, how does he have this really powerful voice? Well, Mars in Capricorn, Mars is exalted. So if planets are surrounded by, if there's a planet in good dignity with a planet's in bad dignity, the planet in good dignity leads the way. It's in charge. It's taking the lead role. And Mars is his ascendant lord. So whether you consider the second house or third house, it's going into that significations. And we're getting mixed. It's mixing the energies. And I encourage you to just think very fluidly with astrology, because astrology, it doesn't really know. We put these barriers, limitations around things that don't have any barriers or limitations themselves. These are just, we're trying to understand the energy, and we put words on it, and we put lines and delineations, but in reality, they're not there. They're not there. It's just energy mixing with energy, and energy mixing with energy. Like if you put like droplets of color in water and swirl them around, they're just going to do what they do. They're not going to follow any order that we imagine they might. They're just going to mix together. They're going to blend. They're going to create their own patterns and shapes and colors. So I encourage you to think fluidly. So we're getting second, third house mixing. And why that's important, well, second house is voice, but third house is the expression and skills of voice. So a lot of times singers are going to have second and third house mixing together. And that means that they have the voice, but they also have the ability to control the voice. Now, Ozzy Osbourne has like incredible range. He can sing like through many octaves, very high, very low. He's got this very powerful Martian voice, right? And the moon and Jupiter, even though in Capricorn, not in good dignity, they are not inhibiting it. Plus, he's got this great grand trine here, which is so, I mean, it's all in your face. Like, well, I have to talk about that, of course. and it's an Earth trine, grand Earth trine. And what's interesting is, like, if you look at Ozzy Osbourne and you're like, well, what kind of trine might he have? Maybe a water trine, maybe a fire trine. Like, Earth trine is probably the last thing I'd think of, but actually with his voice, it makes sense because it's all supporting his voice. You know, we got the 4-degree, 6-degree, 4-degree. It's all about the Saturn and Capricorn, North Node and Taurus. And like I said, I don't usually use the nodes with aspects, but the trine with the nodes does work. That's the conjunction and the trine are ones that I really pay attention to. Not just me, that's also a Vedic aspect for the nodes. They look at the trines from the nodes. And Saturn is ruling the third whole sign house and the third cusp. So, you know, we could say like fourth whole sign house, but what we have in common with both is the third. So Saturn, we could definitely say, is ruling the third house, and it's going into Virgo, right at the top, right conjunct the MC. So he's lifting up that expression, that communication, right to the top of his chart, to the public arena. So that's very prominent. And Saturn, let's see. It is square, like I said before, it is square, it's dispositor, which is a connection. So that's good for Saturn, because even though it's a square, and square is the difficult aspect, it's making contact with its dispositor Mercury. So that benefits, you know, both Saturn and the MC. That's one of the ways you can look at well, any planet in position, but, you know, bonifying the career, you could say. So that's all very prominent. Moon is ruling, it's not ruling anything, well, but it is the 9th whole sign house. And so we're getting a religious connotation, obviously, Black Sabbath, right? The name, it's a dark, religious, cultic. So he's mixing, you know, a cult, which is the black, Sabbath, which is a religious connotation. Moon ruling the 9th house, but most of the 8th house. So 8th and 9th, again, colors mixing together. Mercury is ruling the 8th house, conjunct the sun. So bringing in that darkness, that heaviness, death, rebirth, occult, secrets, hidden things. Interestingly enough, he has been accused of being a Satanist, but he's not. He's a Christian. He's a practicing Christian. He's just a drunk and a drug addict, or has been most of his life, and is dark in nature. It's funny because there are real Satanists, but they don't behave anything like Ozzy Osbourne. They behave like good, upstanding politicians, CEOs, movie stars, musicians, but they hide their darkness. That's the difference. I mean, it's real when you dig a little bit deeper. All the true Satanists behave like what you would imagine, you know, good Christians look like, or whatever. That's because they're lying, and that's part of Satanism. It's just being lied. The thing about Scorpio is Scorpio does not like to hide. It likes to hide underneath a veil of authenticity. That's the thing about Scorpio. Pisces will hide. Pisces can create an alter ego, and you'll never know who they really are because they're just so deep. And Cancer will hide behind a shell. And Scorpio will hide behind a shell too, but the shell is going to be very authentic. Scorpios hate inauthenticity. It's one of the things about Scorpio. It's just like, like hatred of that which is fake and false. Like just, I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna be, if it means being mean, if it means being, hurtful or whatever. It's better to be authentic and real than be fake, Cancer can be fake, I'm not gonna lie. They can hide behind because they don't have that same desire to be authentic, and neither does Pisces. And they're all three water signs can be hidden, but Scorpio does not hide behind a veil of pretense. Generally speaking, they hide behind a veil of authenticity. They're going to be authentically, mean, nasty, dark, whatever, to separate their vulnerability from other people. They're going to have their guard up, but it's not going to be a fake, pretentious guard. It's going to be like a brutally real guard, like, go fuck yourself. Like that kind of thing. Like, I will literally hurt you. So go away, because I don't like you. Cancer and Pisces will do whatever they do. Pisces will imagine that they are a unicorn. And Cancer will just be all nice and sweet. Meanwhile, they're, wanting to kill you. Something like that. Anyway, I'm not dogging on any of the signs. All the signs are archetypes of energy. They all have their place. They all have their. I'm just talking about levels of realness. That's why I was saying, like, he gets accused of being satanic. He's not. He's just Scorpio ascendant, Sun, all these things. And then South Node conjunct Venus in Scorpio. Venus also not in good dignity in Scorpio. However, it is one of the triplicity rulers. So that adds something. Moon is also one of the triplicity rulers of Earth. So that also is something. But here, Venus in Scorpio is becoming very deep, dark, sexual, craving intimacy. It's not just partnership. They want that depth of intimacy. And Venus also in Scorpio is going to, any planet in Scorpio is going to, that's one of the things that's going to further the desire to drink, do drugs. I never heard anything about his sexuality. Maybe he took it out all on drinking and drugs. That's more Sagittarian, but potentially Venus and Scorpio is very sexual. And it's South Node. But you know what? Probably because of the South Node conjunct Venus. So my point, South Node conjunct Venus. Venus is creativity. Venus is the arts. South Node Venus is going to make him naturally very creative. In a dark way, in an intense way, in a heavy way, because Scorpio. And it's, whether you call it first house, 12th house, it is what it is, right? It's in the same sign as the ascendant, behind the ascendant. So it has some hidden qualities, some 12th house qualities, but it also has some first house qualities. So it's important to understand that. It's not like Libra in the 12th house. It's not like Libra at the late degree, 25 degrees, right on the 12th house cusp, where that would be true 12th house, because you're getting confirmation both by quadrant and by whole sign. So that's how I see it. Like, this would be the true 12th house, very small degrees between 25 and 29 degrees, Libra. That would be Ozzy's true 12th house. For instance, Neptune is in the 11th quadrant, but 12th whole sign. So we're mixing again between 11th and 12th. Neptune in the 12th is a very creative imagination. Neptune in the 11th shows creativity within groups, networks. Black Sabbath is a group, especially in Libra, very social group, right? He does well with creative groups and creative imagination, both these things. And we're getting a doubling over creativity in the 12th house, because this Venus, South Node Venus, is partially in the 12th house by quadrant, not by whole sign. And by whole sign, this Neptune is in the 12th. So it's important to take both into consideration. I think a lot of creativity there. We get Pluto in Leo in the 9th quadrant in the 10th whole sign house. So again, we're mixing things up, but it is what it is. Like I refuse to only look at one side of things because I don't think I'm getting a complete picture that way. But Pluto in the 9th would indicate a very dark Plutonic relationship with religion, but powerful and transformative nonetheless. It doesn't mean he's not religious. It means that religion is Plutonic and in Leo. So it's, it's informing his part of his identity. The sun is disposited by Leo. Sun rules over Leo. So it's Pluto transforms, right? Pluto evolves. It's very dark and heavy and deep and goes through pain and crisis. So his faith, his religion, his Jupiter, which is already in Capricorn, he becomes very depressed periodically and goes through religious crisis. But that's probably why he's a Christian and he prays before every show. Every time he performs, he prays before. Because Pluto ultimately wants that upward evolution, that transformation. Now, if you look at it as the 10th whole sign house, you could say Pluto is influencing his career, making him very powerful, big, transformative career, which he has. I mean, he had Black Sabbath, which today remains the original inspiration for metal. Then he went on to have a powerful solo career. Ozzy Osbourne is bigger than any, band member from Black Sabbath. He was the star. He's the king he's the Prince of Darkness. I think that's the Godfather of metal. These are two of his nicknames. Pluto being very prominent, of course. Boomer generation. And then he went on to produce the Ozfest, which was a series of festivals that were very, very big in the 90s. Pluto was in Scorpio at that time, so Ozzy was very big and powerful at that time. He was the godfather of metal because he was the first. Black Sabbath was essentially the first metal band. Now I don't know if there were any that claimed to be before him, but before Black Sabbath, but they were essentially the first big metal band, the first recognizable metal band, which became a huge hit in the 80s, as we know. Metal became huge in the 80s. And we're even having a resurgence of it today among millennials because of Stranger Things, which is, playing Metallica. So I've heard. I haven't even watched the show. But now millennials are all like, oh, wow, Metallica's cool. Metallica was cool way back in the 80s. I listened to Metallica. I don't anymore. I don't listen to that heavy vibrational. Interestingly enough, I want to comment on the whole, Pluto is square his ascendant. I didn't even look at that. But yeah, wow. So even more intense relationship. And that would further his drinking, drugs, etc. But yeah, even though his music isn't, even though he's not satanic, his music it's heavy. It is lower vibrational. When you get that heavy metal music, it is lower vibrational. And that's why even George Bush commented, he's like, Ozzy Osbourne made all these hits, and even mom loves it because they are Satanists. Of course, they love this kind of music. They are Satanists. This is the kind of thing they love. They all love. They love that darkness, even though they pretend to be like good Christians. They're real They're real deal, right? The Bushes, the Cheneys, the Clintons, the Obamas, all these people. They're really demons and devils. But Ozzy is just somebody who makes the heavy music, but himself is not, like, again, he's a Christian. He has Uranus at the 29th degree of Gemini, and 29 degrees of any sign is a very unstable sign because it's about to change into new, and it's like just disintegrate, it's falling apart, it's unstable. If your sun is at the 29th degree of any sign, that's not great. And plus the 29th degree of Gemini is also not a great degree because this is the summer solstice. This is where the sun is at its highest point. This is where energy reaches its height, maximum height. 29 degrees Sagittarius, maximum low. So Jupiter is very low, right? This would be the lowest, it's right over, but almost at the lowest point of where the winter solstice. So very depressed Jupiter here. Not a lot of optimism, but this, what I was going to say, being in the 8th house, that's very difficult. I'll tell you why, because the 8th house is a house of, death, crisis, rebirth, shared resources. And one of the things about shared resources is that, let's see, where's the moon? So Mercury is going into this first house, conjunct the sun. Moon, which takes up most of the 8th house, is conjunct his ascendant lord. What is shared resources? Well, shared resources can mean, oh, here I'm sharing my money with my partner, right? And my partner's sharing her money with me. But if I go to the store and I want to share the resources, I can either pick something up, go to the counter, pay for it. We're sharing resources. I can go and grab something, put it in my jacket, and walk out. That's also a kind of shared resource, right? Stealing, thievery, criminality. Now, those are 8th house things. Because shared resources. So a lot of times you can see criminals having relationship to the 8th house. And when he was young, he did steal some stuff and went to prison or jail or something. And so there's issues around the 8th house, especially because these are going to him, right? Moon's not in good dignity. If somebody has their 8th house lord in the first, you want to check the dignity. If it's not in good dignity, they're probably a thief, right? Mercury's okay, but it's combust. It's conjunct Chiron, and it is ruling the 8th house. So alternately about the 8th house is it can also indicate giving to those in need. So can the 7th. The 8th house will be even more intimate. Like it's really about like an intimate sharing of resources. So it can go either way. I'm not, there's many ways, different ways it can go. And even in one chart, it can go one way, then later it can go another, depending on the evolution of the person. First, they can be a thief, then they can be, a philanthropist donating to other people. So I don't want to create any sort of negative judgment here. But with Uranus here, it's very unstable, and it's probably contributing to just his overall instability in life. 29th degree of Gemini, especially. 29th degree of Sag, 29th degree of Gemini. These are very precarious degrees that you should be watchful for. It's also pretty much opposite the Jupiter, within 4 degrees, but still. So yeah, he gets very depressed at times, I'm sure, especially with the Mars there. Then his North Node's in Taurus. Taurus again relating to the voice and ruled by Venus, so it's going back here. So the same trajectory. His destiny in life is not changing. South Node conjunct Venus, North Node in the sign of Venus in the 6th house, and he did have a lot of quarrels and disagreements. He was always arguing with friends. Mars is ruling the 6th house cusp, so it's in the 3rd house or 2nd house, depending on how you look at it. And so disagreements, but it's in good dignity, so he generally wins with it, but still a lot of court cases, a lot of argumentation with friends, with people sued him for his influences, Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. You know, there are various people who committed crimes, you know, like stabbed people, like murders or suicide, and they attributed it to listening to his music and his dark lyrics. But he won in the court cases. I'm not saying he was right or wrong. It did come out good for him, I think, because Mars is exalted. But also Mercury conjunct Saturn. So a lot of argumentation in general and disagreements with friends. His bandmates always were at odds with him because of his drinking and drugs. Like he and in the end he got Parkinson's. He got Parkinson's recently. That was announced. So that's another sixth house thing with the ruler in the 12th first, Scorpio, not in good dignity here, Venus. But yeah, I think I explained it all on his basic on his chart, but on his draconic chart, we're seeing even more Scorpio, Sun and Mercury, right? And so that's very prominent. And then Jupiter. So again, this dark, heavy theme, dark religion, Black Sabbath, right? It's all very prominent here. More Sagittarius, Mars, and Moon. So that's again influencing that philosophical, religious, but also celebratory theme. First house, second whole sign house, and then Uranus in the seventh house. That's Uranus is shocking in relationships. So like he does shocking things, like especially when he's drunk. When he's drunk, this probably draconic chart probably comes out even more. But like he bit the head off of a dove, he bit the head off of a bat in various, you know, two separate occasions. He was always drunk and high. He's like gone and like peed on various things. He was banned in San Antonio, the city of San Antonio, for a decade. You know, he's like fired his whole band when he's drunk and high. He's gone on benders of like drinking and drugs for just like weeks at a time. And all the shocking stuff in relation to others is very Uranus in the seventh house. When Uranus is in the seventh house, it's in relationship. There's just shocking in any kind of relationship. It's shocking. It's like, you know, just and for example, just one example, that Joe Biden's always like saying the craziest, stupidest things and just being really shocking in relationship to other people. Pluto and Cancer in the eighth house. And again, that's fairly obvious, very dark theme here. Dark, heavy, transformational crisis, occult, dark secrets, heavy. Cancer can be very emotional, moody, gothic. Saturn in the ninth house cusp. Saturn tends to be in the ninth house, especially tends to be very skeptical of religion, philosophy, all the ninth house themes. It tends to reject it. And although he's religious now, it probably took him a while to get there, because Saturn will not just easily accept sort of that sort of thing: religion, faith, optimism, philosophy. He's going to reject it. So that's his inner mind. You know, his draconic chart represents the moon's nodes, the inner feeling, the inner being, the true colors on the inside. Neptune, 10th house conjunct the MC. So this is, we often see this with creative types, because Neptune is a planet of, similar to Venus, creativity, right? And then Venus is in Libra, domicile, conjunct the South Node, again, ascendant in Libra, 11th house, so band, you know, community, groups, networks. bona fide by the Venus and domicile, creative, um, creativity, enhancing creativity, ascendant directly over Neptune. So we're getting a very prominent Neptune, ascendant Neptune, Neptune MC. Right. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, if we take this to be the first house, then Mercury in the first house, it gains directional strength. It's very strong, prominent. So is Sun, very prominent in the first house. 12th house will show more creativity. So it's in between. It's in between those two things, first house, 12th house. Right. And then Jupiter here would very much be in the first house, and Jupiter in the first house also very prominent. It's angular and gains a lot of directional strength in the first house. Not so much in Scorpio, but again, that dark theme, Prince of Darkness, Godfather of Metal. Jupiter, it brings creates a lot of expansion and sort of like this teacher guru type. So obviously he's going to have that quality, especially as it relates to dark themes, scorpionic themes. I just want to bring in one more chart here just to re-emphasize this. Black Sabbath formed around August 1969. Some say 68, but either way, Neptune was in Scorpio, and Neptune was the first of the outer planets to move into Scorpio. So we see Uranus in Libra, and then Pluto in Virgo. So they haven't even made it into Scorpio. Neptune was in Scorpio first. I'm not sure what date, but in the 60s, it moved into Scorpio. So it's been into Scorpio for a while, and that fueled the drug and alcohol, a lot of the drugs and alcohol in the hippie movement. The Scorpio is that deep dark, and also sexuality, rampant sexuality. But the influence of Neptune moving into his first house helped form, this is what helped bring Black Sabbath into being, because that dark scorpionic theme, influencing his first house, influencing the dark music, because the outer planets are what influence the culture, music, youth culture, art culture. It really, the more sensitive things that pick up on the outer planets. It wouldn't be any of the other planets, unless there was like a great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn and in water planets or Scorpio. Generally, the other planets are not going to have this much deep influence over things like the musical scene, because it's a scene, it's a culture, so things like that. So I just wanted to point that out, that was the Neptune in Scorpio we're seeing. Black Sabbath represents that. Then we get the next transit into Scorpio is Uranus into Scorpio, and we're getting because of this, we're getting hard rock, like Led Zeppelin was influenced by this, but then Neptune moves into Sagittarius. So a lot of hard rock is more like Neptune Sag feeling, but Uranus in Scorpio was the punk movement, punk feeling. And then Pluto in Scorpio was metal. And then later grunge through the Neptune, Uranus conjunction in Capricorn. Anyway, it's brief musical explanation of what's going on there. And that's it for Ozzy Osbourne. I hope you enjoyed it. Please press like, subscribe. Helps my channel grow a lot, and share it if you like this, and book a reading with me. I'm telling you to do it. You can find me at my website, macroastrology.com, or email me at macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com, and comments, tell me who you want me to do a reading for next, or what subject, anything else you want me to talk about astrologically or otherwise. I can talk about a lot of things. I'm a Gemini. So anyway, that's it for today, guys. Thanks. See ya. Bye.